Thank you. Thankfully, it was just the right time.
Nice tie. I gotta borrow that one someday.
That doesn't make any sense.
$500 more.
That doesn't make any sense.
That's not what you just put on a clip now.
No, it's not.
You tied it.
I tied it.
Point, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
You running good?
Blah, blah, blah,
I had,
pause.
Yeah.
I've
Blah,
got,
blah, blah, blah. And everybody gets all mixed up
I've
here. We
got
don't do
37
that.
miles in.
I know. I don't know why.
14 on
But this is the only way I don't have to do that.
Where'd you guys run when
I don't know.
We ran.
I have no answer for
We
you.
need lessons.
Back.
Okay.
It was, I was sore though when I went out last night. I'm getting old. Getting old.
We all are.
Yeah.
Very old.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March meeting of the Grand Traverse County Ways and Means Committee. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please, if you could all rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Sarah, would you call the roll, please?
Lathrop,
I'm here.
Max Power,
Here.
Lemcool,
Hand it off, I can take it.
Lemko.
Lemcool,
Here.
Thomas,
Here.
Inman,
Here.
Rennie,
Here.
Wheelock.
Yes, ma'am. I used to have a baseball bat when I can.
I know. And it was cute, too.
All right, moving on, the approval of the minutes for the February 19th regular session.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the February 19th, 2014 Ways and Means Committee minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion by Inman, supported by Rennie. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. This brings us to the first opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone wishing to make public comment at this time? Seeing none, there will be a second opportunity for public comment at the end of the evening. In regard to approval of the agenda, I'm adding two items. The first one being under unfinished business, the appointment or the proceeding with the appointing members, citizen committees to a jail siting committee. And under new business, new cars for the sheriff. Are there any other items to be added to the agenda? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Yeah, I'd like to add about the discussion of more budget meetings.
Okay.
You want to do that under commission reports?
We can do that. I had it under notices and announcements because we have a budget meeting tentatively scheduled for next Wednesday, and I don't think we're going to have any additional information at that point, so I was just going to cancel that meeting at that point.
That's what I want to do. Yep.
Agenda, if that's okay.
Yep.
That's under new business?
Under notices and
Under
announcements.
notices.
Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Rennie, supported by Lemko. Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Sarah, will you read the consent calendar, please?
Yes. The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, received and file, or approval is approved by a single committee action adopting the consent calendar. All information identified on the consent calendar can be viewed in its entirety at www.grandtraverse.org. A, receive and file. 1, full year 2013 worker compensation report. B, approval, 2014 remonumentation grant. 2, 2014 remonumentation program contracts. 3, acceptance of 2% grant funding. 4, acceptance of Olson Foundation grant funding for K-9. 5, firework contracts.
Having heard the consent calendar, are there anyone in the audience wishing to have any of these items removed? Seeing none, is there any commissioner wishing to have something removed? Chris?
B2, please.
A1.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar with the exception of item number A1 and B2.
So move.
Motion by Lathrop, supported by Rennie. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Lemcool,
Yep.
Thomas,
Yep.
Inman,
Yes.
Rennie,
Yes.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Wheelock.
Yes, ma'am. We have no special orders of business, therefore the next order will be the items removed from the consent calendar. Mr. Limco, you chose to pull the workman's comp report?
Yeah, I think it's important to thank the employees and the perseverance on the work that they've done in reducing the number of claims. As you can see in our report, they've gone down dramatically for the last 4 years, and I think it's really important that we should note the safety committee and the work that they're doing, our human resource people, on the work that they're doing to be able to continue to make this a safe environment for our employees to work at. I don't know if Jen has anything else she'd like to say? So that's why I pulled it off. I just wanted to make that comment to the employees and say thank you very much. So I make a motion to approve the workers' compensation report.
Second.
Motion by Limco, supported by Rennie. Further discussion?
I think Jen had some remarks.
Oh, I said no.
Yeah, it is
I
interesting
mean, you
that...
did call her
That
up.
sums it up.
Interesting that despite the fact that if it's an indication to what happens in our economy in today's world, our number of incidents are down, the amount of wages is down significantly, but the medical expenses are still higher.
Yep. So,
All right, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
wanted to make
Jen,
some
did you want to add anything? You sure? Okay.
Oh, come on, just a little
Our
bit.
employees do they really do
They
a great
really
job,
do.
so.
yep.
Yeah, and so does your department.
Yeah.
And making sure that they have those proper training, proper equipment, and all those things.
Yes, that is correct, yes. Arlene does a great job at it, so.
Very good.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Second item that was removed from the consent calendar is the remonumentation program contracts. Commissioner Max Bauer, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Much like you have never approved a landfill surcharge in all the years I have known you, I have never approved the county surveyor awarding himself a contract. Therefore, I will not be supporting the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve item number B2, 2000 remonumentation program contracts as presented.
Support.
We have a motion by Inman, supported by Limcool, to enter into a remonumentation contract giving $16,500 to Mitchell and Associates, $17,610 to Gosling Zubek, $17,610 to Gordy Frazier, and $1,665 to Corey Hughes, registered surveyor, as a peer review member. Is there any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Lemkool,
Yep.
Thomas,
Yep.
Inman,
Yep.
Rennie,
Yes.
Lathrop,
No.
Max Bauer.
No.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am. Motion carries. This brings us to the department items. The first on the agenda is Grand Traverse Pavilions discussion regarding the former County Health Department building on Garfield. Corey? Can you get yourself introduced, please?
Corey Hansen, Administrator and CEO of Grand Traverse Pavilions. So included in your packet, there was a memo requesting us having interest in the former Health Department building. As you know, it's been on the market for quite a while, and we have a program that we've been researching, evaluating for over a year, and it appears, at least on the surface, that this building would more than adequately serve that program's needs. And so, one, we were looking for a 90-day opportunity to further investigate that being adequate without it being, sold. And secondly, we'd like to know, I guess, if it does meet our needs, the final, what the cost operationally would be ongoing. So that's what the request is, and information in the packet was about. So,
Oh, well, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to place on hold the sale of the building for 90 days so the Pavilions has an opportunity to evaluate the building for its future needs.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Inman, supported by Limcool, to place on hold the potential sale of the former Health Department building on Garfield. Further discussion? Herb?
Yeah, I think it's really important to note, as your liaison to the Department of Human Services, that I've been intricately involved with this. One of the issues that is really important that you must know on this is whether or not this is a opportunity for them to take over all responsibility for electricity and plowing the snow at this particular time. You're going to start that, that would be part of the agreement, which would mean that we wouldn't have to pay the electric bill and or do any more snow plowing after the first of the month. But also, I think it's important to note as to whether or not how we feel about how we should do this agreement. Because the pavilions currently has a millage that paid for the building. The citizens of our community paid for that building. The old health department has been paid for by the citizens of Grand Traverse County through their taxes to be able to pay for that building. Should we then have to go back out and hit the citizens again for the pavilions to pay for us for that building when we're going to own it? What they are proposing is to take over all maintenance and all repairs, which means that they would be responsible for putting a new roof on, probably a new parking lot, any other modifications that they might have in there. But they're also looking at maybe a 20-year lease, that at the end of the 20-year lease, that they, when they turn that building back over, if they don't continue to use it, that it will be in a due diligence cared building so that we might be able to use it at a later date. So Dave and I have had some major discussions that, as to, you know, that whether or not we should be charging them a lease for this, and when does the lease start, whether we should let them have the building because it is a Grand Traverse County building just like the pavilions is. This would be just another building just like the pavilions, and that Grand Traverse County owns the pavilions, and the pavilions board makes sure it's being taken care of and maintained in a proper way. In fact, their budget for maintenance of their facilities is funded by their depreciation. So they are doing an excellent job in maintaining the building. And I'm sure that they would do the same for this other building. So that's why I want this to be brought up, because I want to know the feelings of the commissioners as to where they think that we ought to go with this, and not just the fact that we're to give them the 90 days to be able to look at it, but also how is that going to be taken care of in the future, and how are we going to send them a lease? Are we going to, what the lease is going to be for? Are we, and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's important to have that discussion.
Well, I would note that none of that information is in this packet that I received.
Part of it is.
Very, 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 very little. There's nothing about a lease agreement, maintenance agreement, the upgrading agreement, or anything in the information that I have. Now,
Right.
you may be privileged to other discussions that are not on my agenda, but the fact is, I don't have a proposal from the pavilions. All I'm being asked for is to put the sale on hold, I believe.
Okay.
Larry?
Yeah, and there's two notes I want to make on this one. First one is, I don't think it's appropriate for us to begin discussing what arrangements we would have with the pavilions until we have a formal request from the pavilions, and we do not have one in the packet. The second question I would have to have for council is, my understanding is we have a current listing agreement with a realtor or a realtor firm, and I'm just wondering if having us tell, within the terms and agreements and conditions within the listing agreement, well, whether that allows us to place on hold this property for their evaluation. I'm not sure that I think we have to give notice to them. You have to review the contract. So I'm not sure that this motion is something that we can move forward with today unless you review that listing agreement.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion, is that we review the listing agreement first, and then maybe bring this back to the board at next week's meeting.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'll withdraw my motion.
Second agree?
Who was the second?
I was. I'm not sure I'm willing to withdraw my second.
All right,
Dave.
let's, hold on a minute. Dave, do you want to add any comments to this discussion? Because you've been in negotiations with the pavilions about this piece of property.
Okay, I will add a little bit to it. We have been in discussions with the pavilions. I want to bring to your attention that it's an asset. The Garfield Building is an asset. It's up for sale for $649,000 at this moment. The deal that we had worked on had two, it's in your packet. I think it's early, it was on your table. It's this memorandum, pretty much concisely. You don't have this memorandum? It says 17 on the top?
Nope.
How do I have it?
I don't think so.
Nope. Have it.
Okay, well,
I don't-
I'll tell you then.
Yeah, I don't have that.
We paid, I'm sorry, we charged the health department in 2012, $68,137 just for building use. That's not maintenance, that's not anything other than building use. That's the depreciation on the building. And that's an annual fee that was charged to the health department. And we'd been charging them for years, the whole time they had been there, $68,000. The deal I thought we were coming to with the pavilions was to charge them, since their PACE program needs to get off the ground, they need some time to get it up and running and make it profitable, or at least break even. They wanted a break for the first 4 years, and then they would start paying on the 5th year. And they would pay us rent, the equivalent of $500,000 spread over 16 years, or $31,250. So they wouldn't pay anything for the first 4 years, and then rent would start in year 5 at $31,250 per year. And on top of that, I wanted either them to pay us $11,000 and some odd dollars for the equipment, and we would maintain the large equipment, re-roof it, repave the parking lots when needed, all those things. Or they could agree to either give us the money or fix anything that was beyond its useful life when they decided to turn the building back over to us, and that would be part of the lease agreement. That's the last discussion I had. And the last I know, Corey went to the DHS board and presented that proposal, and I think they decided to come in and ask to have us give them the building.
Herb?
Yeah, I think it's, what their proposal was is very fair. But I also, it's a different philosophical approach as to whether or not we actually should build them if they take and do a net lease, and they take on all responsibilities, all repairs, all maintenance, everything that has associated with that building, and we don't have anything to do with it. We might have a once-a-year walkthrough by our facilities department to make sure everything's up to our specifications, but other than that, we wouldn't have anything to do with it. And so that's why this philosophical discussion becomes important as to where you, the commissioners, feel whether or not you think of it as an asset and you should be able to get any money from it, or is it an asset that belongs to the community and the community is going to be receiving the benefit of it. So that's why this discussion. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'd like you to give me some input as to, am I way off in left field? Or,
I want some time.
or where are you at with this? And do you want us to give you more information before you can make this decision?
Larry?
First of all, I want, this got sprung on us, so.
Sure.
I'm going to take the Charlotte Rennie approach and say, I need time to think about this. I want some more information, I want it in the packet, I want the analysis and the staff recommendation, that kind of a thing. So, I'm not prepared to give you any input at this time. I'd like to get back to the motion on the floor, if we could, and ask Chris, if we let the motion stand, because it's got to go to the board meeting, could you report at the board meeting whether the motion would be appropriate or not based on the contract we signed, and can we give the notice to the...
My recommendation would be if
realtor.
we will vote on the motion, and one way or the other, it'll be a recommendation to the full Board of Commissioners next week,
Right.
coming out of this
Yeah.
subcommittee meeting. And if we deem that it is an invalid motion, we will pull it from the consent calendar next week and have opportunity to discuss it or redo it.
Well, we're not having a subcommittee meeting on this.
We have a committee of the whole.
Oh, this
subcommittee
meeting.
Ways and Means.
All
This
right,
meeting
okay.
tonight
Yeah, that's
is
fine.
a subcommittee.
And
of
then we
the
can
Board
wait
of
for his
Commissioners.
recommendation at the end of the month.
So we would make it as a recommendation. It's not going to be for immediate approval.
All right, I'll let my motion stand.
Dan?
I'd like to see a compare and contrast type of graph of what David says he wants to do and what you say. We can look at them side by side and decide, because, talking about it, I see some virtue in what you're saying, and I also see some virtue in what you're saying. So I'd like to see staff bring up a comparison contract piece of paper that puts it in a simple format that we can actually look at it.
Would you like also a proposal from Corey as to what they're willing to do?
Yeah.
At that time? Can you give us that by next week, Wednesday, Corey?
Yeah, we have.
A sample lease agreement or something to be reviewed by our,
Keep it simple.
There's
Yeah.
one been drawn up.
okay?
I guess if I can add a couple things here. One, we need to remember that for the last year and a half, we've considered this building as an asset that was on the market to sell, which would supplement Grand Traverse County's budget issues. If we do this program, we no longer have that asset available to turn into finance. No, that's the case. 6 months ago, probably, maybe a little more than that, we did a tour of the Pavilions facility. We had a very extensive tour and had a very good time. And in the last 12 and a half minutes of that program, this PACE thing was rolled out on us that they may need to have us help them with a building. It's kind of the way those types of things usually end up, it is what it is. And I don't think any of us were real surprised. That being said, I'm not prepared to make a decision on granting them use of this building until we see some sort of comparison of exactly what it's going to be. I'm not opposed to the idea because I think it does benefit the community as a whole, but I certainly want more detail than what we had in our packet tonight. Dan?
Are you taking public comment on this particular issue?
I can in a minute when commissioners are done.
Okay.
Chris?
I would also be interested as we look into the future of seeing, I understand it's for sale for $650,000. Obviously, people are not lining up to buy the building, that's number one. Number two, we have costs that we have to pay, realtor fees, et cetera, et cetera. So I would be interested in knowing, if someone did step up to the plate for $650,000, exactly what which I think is unlikely, but that's just me. I'd like to see what approximately we would put in the bank.
What the net proceeds of the sale of that building would be.
Yes, please.
Charlie?
Yeah, Dave, have we had any interest in the building, period?
I've had a few couple.
There's been interest, we just haven't had any.
Have you had any offers?
No, we have not.
So nothing that firm?
Not at
What does it
650.
cost us to maintain that
And
building?
we knocked it down from 720
I know you
to
lowered the price, we
719.
voted on that. What does it cost us to maintain that building per month as it stands vacant?
There was something in the paper, I haven't asked Danny what it is, but it's
$12,000 a
$12,000 a year, $1,000
so.
a month maybe.
The
I don't
cost
know
to
I haven't-
maintain the building in its
For
mothballed
lights,
state.
yeah.
Mothballed state is relatively
Yeah.
insignificant. Is there further discussion? All right, we have a motion on the floor. Oh, I'm sorry. Public comment.
Hi, Andy Merrick, 2875 East Railroad Avenue, Interlochen, Michigan. If I believe I understand the motion is to put a hold on the sale for 90 days while a decision is made by another party whether or not they want to take over the building. I don't think it would be wise at this point to put a hold on the sale because there's no guarantee that the Pavilions is going to want to take over the operation. You may have someone who might want to step up and have a small window to operate in to make an offer on that building. It doesn't look like it's going to be a big issue that Pavilions is going to lose out. It's been on the market for at least a year, 2 years
Gonna be-
at this and really hasn't had an offer. So I don't think making a motion and holding any potential buyers at bay is a wise idea at this point. I don't think it's really something that needs to be done because there hasn't been a crazy amount of offers as it stands. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Charlie?
Have we tried to lower the price again? Or have
We have not tried that.
talked to realtors that say this should be here? I mean, is there any input as to where we should market that building at?
Well, there's two things going on, you know, I mean, commercial is picking up. Commercial and retail is picking up. But, you know, it's worth a try. I mean, if it was on the market for,
$500,000.
yeah, I mean, 500,000 or 600,000.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
It might find a buyer.
Dick?
We've got a county full of empty commercial buildings that are as good or better than that, and many, many sizes. All you gotta do is drive around and look, there's a lot of empty ones.
Well, I think it's also really important to note that when they first started looking at this PACE project, that they were looking at a $4 million project, which probably would have to be bonded from the citizens of Grand Traverse County. And by putting this building into the hands of the Pavilions, they don't have to do that. They can fund it from within their funds at this current level. So they don't have to go back to the citizens. We all look at, you know, trying to make sure that the citizens of Grand Traverse County don't pay any more taxes than they absolutely have to. This is a way for us to be able to do that, to say that we're going to have a quality program that's going to be able to be offering people the opportunity to stay in their homes for the rest of their life and to be able to receive quality care. And I think that's the key when we start looking at all this, is how much money is it going to cost the citizens of Grand Traverse County. By doing this, by giving them this 90 days, they can go in, have an architect look at it, review that process. They already have identified that this is probably going to fit within what their needs are. They just need to have that architect to be able to walk through that building and say, you're going to have to do this, you're going to have to do this, you're going to have to do this, and those are the things that you're going to have to do, so they can put a budget together, know what that dollar amount's going to be, so they can go back to their board and say, this is what it's going to cost us to go into this building. They've already talked about whether or not they want to do a lease. They're willing probably to do a lease. I'm coming from it from a different direction. So that's just their board has said, Corey, put the lease together. You're probably going to pay something. You may want to delay it, defer some of that lease payments up front so that they can pay for the remodeling and all that stuff and get themselves up and going. This program starts with maybe 1, 2, or 3 people, 2 people a month going into the program. It's going to take a lot of time. I sent you all an email about the success of the one in Grand Rapids and Muskegon, and how they 2 years they're up and running and already looking at expansion. So, you know, that's why they want to do this kind of a program, because they know it's successful. It reduces the cost to the taxpayers of all the communities, because those people now are not going to be taking on services at Munson, doing emergency room, making all the phone calls to our emergency people to be able to come in and help them get up off the floor, to help them because they have some other medical needs. This PACE program takes care of that. And so they have nurses on duty. They have the transportation. They will transport in there on every day, or 2 or 3 times a day, or 2 or 3 times a week, to be able to take care of their needs with doctors, nurse practitioners, with nurses, and with physical therapists. This is going to give the people in Grand Traverse County a great quality of life toward the end of their life.
I have a question.
David?
Corey, if I might ask you a question. You've obviously done a lot of financial analysis on the PACE program, and I guess my question is, and knowing what I know about medical care facilities, which is, from 30 years ago, I haven't been involved with medical care facilities specifically since I left Ingham County in like 93, maybe. But you had a lot of federal funding, you had some state funding, Medicare and Medicaid funding. So if you were to have a $4 million building with a debt service payment, or you were to have rent payments, how would that impact the financial analysis? I mean, I know that a lot of what your costs are become reimbursable, and some of that is not reimbursable, and that's where patient fees come in. What's your analysis on the impact of $1 in rent, for example?
Well, how the medical care is funded and how the PACE Center is funded is two different mechanisms. So the PACE Center, you get a per member per capitated rate. So you have you get a payment from Medicare and payment from Medicaid, and that's fixed per member per month. So any way you can reduce costs obviously helps your bottom line.
Would it be viable with a $4 million debt service a $4 million building with debt service associated with that? Would it still be an affordable program for the capitated payment?
How do you get $4 million?
Wasn't that
I
what
think it's
the
closer
new facility was going to cost?
I think it was closer to 2 to 2.5.
Okay, $2.5 million?
Yeah, well, the feasibility study that was conducted, the operational feasibility study, that was the scenario that we were going to build on at around that, and in the long run, it would support either a bond or rent.
So what debt service would you have on that then, annually?
I believe it was around $200,000.
I mean, it's feasible, but it takes them,
It's still viable at $200,000.
it's still viable, but it's 4 or 5 years before they start to make enough money to be able to pay for that debt service.
And, we're taking on the risk of, instead of the Medicare or Medicaid program, we're taking on the risk, so there's a lot of risk to the PACE
I
program.
understand. I understand the 4-year, why you wanted the 4-year kind of hiatus from paying anything, but.
Chris?
A couple of questions. My inclination is to leave it on the market, but because I like to look at all offers as they come in. However, I've got a couple questions for you because I think so highly of your program, what you do over at the pavilions. If we do not hold this building, are you still going to, and for some reasons someone comes and buys it, are you still going to look for another building? Are you going to look at building a building? If you bond, are you going to go to the voters and ask for a millage to pay for that bond? If we say no and the building sells tomorrow, do you have Plan B?
Well, our original plan was to build on to the building. Of course, that would bring added cost. Also, we were looking at funding a lot of it through fundraising efforts. So if this building goes away, then it's a lot higher costs and a lot in the future before the program would probably be up and running. So that's the distinction. I feel that this building will work based on, we had one architect just walk through, he has to do more, but I'm just saying on the surface, everything looks positive for this building. And if we don't get it, the alternatives is a much higher cost to everybody involved, I think.
Thank you.
I also want to point out that bringing this today, I wasn't necessarily expecting a decision. It was the initial giving you information on what we want. So I wasn't necessarily looking for a decision.
Dan?
Is there a motion on the floor?
Yes.
Can someone repeat it to me, because I'm confused?
The motion is to put a 90-day hold on the potential sale of the Garfield building.
Okay. My feeling about that is, I'm going to vote no on it right now until we get more information next week. That's what I feel.
Charlie?
One other question, is there any impact on the realtor with a 90-day hold?
Well, that's what Chris is going to have to check with the contract, and we would, the motion would be made and pulled from the consent calendar next week for further discussion. Okay. Corey, if we chose not to put the hold on the property tonight, is there any reason that you cannot continue to proceed with your architect and look at this building as whether or not it's viable?
Yeah, we can continue to proceed. It's just a matter of spending dollars and being unfruitful in the end.
I guess I'm kind of inclined to, at least in my mind, leave the property on the market with the, and authorize you to continue to proceed to do the on-site inspections if you choose to review the viability of this building. You know, I don't think that we're going to line them up at the door to sell this building in the next 2 weeks. You know, that being said, you know, anything can happen, you know, and some of these commercial properties are turning, and they're turning real rapidly when they do turn. But this is a unique building, you know, and it's got some certain, you know, problem issues, if you will, but it also has a lot of great features in its location, its, you know, primary road, its water and sewer capabilities, and the fact that there was already a clinic in this building is also beneficial for your use.
Sure.
So, you know, I don't really know one way or the other. David?
I can really understand that they would like to get some kind of certainty going forward that the building will be available if they spend money doing architectural work or analysis. And I can appreciate that, but I think we need to have an agreement on what the terms are if they do proceed with the building. And I think that needs to be agreed upon in advance, and everybody knows what's going to happen in advance, and everybody's okay with that. And once we get that agreement, then I think we can put it on hold and say, well, we've got a potential, maybe not buyer, but maybe a lessor or a, you know, an occupant for.
Corey, I'm going to vote no on the motion tonight, but I would be more than happy to look at it again next week. As the administrator said, if I can get a little bit more information, I want to help you if at all possible, but I'm really reluctant to just, and I understand your point of view. You don't want to hire an architect and go through all the motions. I don't think you have to. We're talking 7 days here. And if you've got some information that you can share with the board for next week's meeting, I'd be more than happy to reconsider.
Sure.
Clarification? If this vote is turned down,
That's where I'm going.
what's the process of bringing it back next week? Because I understand by
60-day
turning
rule.
it down, we cannot bring it on the next week's agenda.
Nope.
So
Can
you
I-
don't want to turn it down if you want to discuss it.
We'll withdraw
Next
the
week.
motion.
Do we
Takes
table it?
I just have a question.
Withdraw the motion.
Takes a 2/3 vote.
I think you have two different choices. You know, in my mind, we have two choices here. Either one, we pass the motion and we pull it from the consent calendar
Right.
next week for further discussion, and we can overturn that decision if we're not happy once we see the draft of the lease agreement and we have the opportunity to see different information. Either that, or we leave the motions the way they are and we have a motion to table, and then we vote on the motion to table, and then we don't vote on the motion to.
We could just withdraw the motion.
Or you can withdraw.
Corey's
the
got a
motion.
question.
Corey?
Regarding the listing agreement, we had this discussion, and I thought you did you get an opinion from Chris?
From Chris? On whether we could withdraw it? It's pretty clear, that, at least my recollection of our conversation, Chris, was that it was on the issue of whether we would have to pay the fees anyway.
Right.
It had to deal with the brokerage fees.
Right, that's what I thought it was going to come down to.
And then the question became, if we give it to ourselves, is that, you know, if like, because the pavilions is, you know, those properties are county properties, and the pavilions' properties are our properties. If we rent it to one of our own subdivisions, or so, you know, one of our own entities.
That's no different than us occupying the building ourselves again.
Yeah, I mean, if I rent it to my kid, do I have to, you know, pay the real estate person? I don't think so. And I
How
think
long is
that's-
this, when did we sign that lease? It's been more than a year?
The brokerage
Oh,
agreement?
it's been, we renewed it, I think, in July of last year, if I'm not
July or
mistaken.
maybe the end of the year, end of 2012.
So I'm thinking it's been more than a year.
Herb, do you want me to
so we're
withdraw
probably
the-
outside the,
Do you want me to withdraw the motion? You're the second.
My suggestion is that you pass the motion and we pull it from the consent calendar
All right.
next week with
Yeah.
additional
Okay.
information.
All right.
Chris?
If you do that, you're going to send a message to buyers everywhere that you're not interested in selling it. You may as well just pull it from the
I'm fine with withdrawing it.
from the sale.
Charlie?
I would not support this, so if that makes a difference.
Mr. Chairman,
To
I'd
hold.
like- I'd like to withdraw the motion.
Okay, I'll support that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to table it.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second to
That's
table
a
the issue?
Table means it goes to the next meeting.
It'll go to the Board of Commissioners
All right, I'll
meeting
second
next
that.
week. Motion by Lemkool,
I'll support
supported by Inman, to table the matter of the Garfield building and a lease agreement with the pavilions until next week's board meeting.
You had another public comment, I think, over here.
We're confusing you, Mary? Absolutely. We confuse ourselves sometimes, too. Don't feel bad.
My name is Mary Maroy, and I live at 2975 Wild Juniper Trail in Grand Traverse County. And I am one of your 2 representatives to the Department of Human Services Board, along with Mary Pat Randall and Ralph Saffredini, who is the state appointee. And I kind of think you already did it if you withdrew the motion, but I, as one of your representatives, just urge you to please give us this 90 days. I can tell you that the board has discussed this at length, and we probably are 90%. We have 90% of the work that you are asking for tonight done, and we are ready to really make a proposal that we think would be a fair proposal for the use of this building. The one thing that you just have to keep in the back of your mind is look at the pavilions. Look at the cottages, look at the medical care facility, and what you will end up with in a long number of years in that health department building is something that you can be proud of, and it will be an asset that will be much, much more valuable than it is today. You need to know that just based upon history in this county. So I don't want to take any more of your time. The only other thing that I will say, this doesn't happen very often, but I completely agree with her.
Wow.
Oh, be careful.
Another Got a temperature?
We have a motion to table this issue for further information and for further discussion at the Board of Commissioners meeting next week. Is there any further discussion this evening? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. So, Corey, you're going to provide us with some sort of a draft lease agreement, and David, you're going to provide us with, comparisons between the two, right?
And
Chris's
Take a look
opinion
at
about the realtor contract.
Yeah, we'll take a look.
Good. All right, brings us down to Parks and Recreation, Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund application.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Jason Jones, your Parks and Recreation Director. I come to you tonight with some information that was in your packet, and unfortunately, it doesn't look like all of the information I wanted to present tonight was included in your packet. So for those of you with iPads, I just emailed it to you. Ding, 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 ding. Yeah, you guys, I haven't heard any yet. You guys haven't received it?
I did get it.
Perfect. So on the packet that I just emailed you, there are 3 attachments. The center attachment is the one related to last year's application, and that's what I'm here to talk about today. I'm here to ask for the county's support of the Michigan Natural Resource Trust Fund grant application for the Maple Bay improvements. Very similar, in fact, the same grant application that this commission approved last year at this exact same meeting of the Ways and Means Committee in March. What I'm asking for is a little bit different. The reason it's a little bit different this year is a couple things have changed with this property. It's been identified, the East Bay Chain of Lakes water trail has been identified, and that was something that was made public after our grant application. That's an opportunity for us to receive higher score or higher points on the scoring criteria associated with trails. Maple Bay is in a unique position because it sits at the intersection of the US 35 bike corridor as well as the East Bay Chain of Lakes water trail. So the packet that I sent you on page 19 are the 2 sites that we're hoping to develop. One is near the beach at Maple Bay, and that is, we're talking about developing 2 pavilions, a hand pump, universally accessible, single vault toilet, and calling that a point of refuge for the East Bay Chain of Lakes water trail that extends from the southern edge of Lake Skegumog through Elk Rapids down to Keith J. Charters State Park. like I said, that's on page 19 if you want to see the picture. My apologies, I'm not sure why it wasn't included in your packet. What I'm here to ask the commission for, that was included in your packet, thankfully. It's a requirement of the Michigan Natural Resource Trust Fund to have a certified resolution from the governing body, which is the Board of Commissioners, to identify the either amount or percentage of grant match and to provide approval for the Parks and Recreation Department to apply for this trust fund grant. What I'm asking for a match is for $104,061, and that has potential to be broken down over the course of 2 fiscal years, including fiscal year 15 and fiscal year 16. The Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy we're very fortunate to have them as a partner with this. They've committed a $50,000 match to bring our match up to a 33% match, which will also gain us a greater number of points for the scoring criteria associated with this grant. And that's essentially what I'm here to ask for. Are there any, I realize you haven't seen the proposal, haven't seen the site plans. Are there any questions about this project so far?
Jason, basically this is the same development we talked about a year ago, right?
Correct. We have a couple additional opportunities to score additional points. We didn't miss our mark by much last year. The reason I'm bringing this back to you is I think we have a real potential to gain a higher number of points based on the Chain of Lakes East Bay Water Trail, as well as the increased match percentage-wise on this grant project.
Chris?
Jason, if I had $104,000 as I look forward, I'd give it to you. But I really would. But I've got a 911 center with antiquated equipment. I've got the county administrator who's been asked to find funds for a jail. $104,000. And Maple Bay is beautiful as it is. It really is. I understand that it would be great if we had this right now, but I don't see it as high a priority as 911 equipment, technology for our departments. So please understand that if we were richer, as I look forward, I'd give it to you. But for those reasons, I'm going to have to not support a motion if one is made.
Dan?
We spent some money on Maple Bay last year. How much was it?
There were no expenditures on Maple Bay last year. When I came to you last year, I was asking for support of this grant, very similar ask, and
$80,000.
We didn't receive that grant funding, so those monies were never expended. I agree with Christine on this. I know I seem hard-nosed about this, but I think that the core of our community is, what good are parks if they're not safe? So we've got a sheriff's department, we've got a jail, we've got our prosecuting attorney, we have buildings that are crumbling. I think that we've got some awful nice parks. Let's keep those up. I don't want to see us spend $104,000 at this point. I agree with you that later on, if we're more flush, we can do these beautiful things. But I'll be voting no on it.
Larry?
2 quick questions. Jason, does this? I just remember the master plan for Maple Bay, and then it got presented, for example, at Acme Township. And there was a presentation on that last year about keeping it passive, and there were there was a nice road going in from what I remember, picnic tables and restrooms and those kinds of things. So that is that particular plan that was presented last year, for example, at Acme Township for the master plan for the Maple Bay. That's not changed, and that would be the use of this funding to accomplish that.
Correct. I think you asked a very similar question last year at this time.
Okay.
Yeah, this is congruent with all of the Maple Bay master plan specifications. And I think I forgot to mention, the total cost for the project's $454,000. So what I'm asking for is a 25% match, and this is in congruence with
Just
that plan.
a second, if I could. Now, the funding sources that are going to help with the $400,000 was 25% from Grand Traverse County, and the rest was coming from?
$50,000 from the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy.
Okay. Is there a possibility that there can be some in-kind offsets with our $104,000 portion over 2 years? Second question is it possible that we can share our contribution by going to, for example, the Tribe, Rotary Charities, and Acme Township and asking them to kick in to help with the $104,000?
That's a possibility for us to apply for this grant, and this grant's due on April 1st.
And it would be subject to us getting the, other partners involved to help fund this thing, other than, what you've outlined here.
Correct.
And from county.
I mean, I'd be cool with that, if we get, the Rotary and the Rotary Charities and the Tribe and Acme Township to all kick in to help us with this project. I feel more comfortable moving forward just applying for the grant and addressing it at that point in time.
I guess let me make sure I'm understanding your question appropriately.
Could we get some other partners to help offset our $104,000?
We would need to have a commitment from Grand Traverse County to cover those costs, and then between now and grant receipt, I believe, and I can check with the DNR tomorrow, I believe I could go out and solicit other local grants to meet the local match.
Okay.
I know that's a possibility. I'm not sure if it's something I can change once the application goes, and I believe I can, but before I say positively yes, I'd like to check with the DNR.
Okay, Herb?
I'm just really struggling with this like everybody else is. And, and I know that if we approve this, this project and go forward, that at a later time, if we get notified that we received the grant, that we can decline the grant if we don't have the match.
That's right.
But it will hurt us
long run
in our future grant applications. So it's better off not to either apply for the grant to begin with if you're going to have that kind of fear. But also, I personally think that if you're going to be able to do this, that we wouldn't take this money out of general fund, that it's up to Parks and Recreation to find it in their budget. So I would be more willing to make this motion that we approve this, but the money comes out of the budget that's already appropriated for Parks and Recreation, which means they would have to figure out ways to be able to cut their budget in order to be able to figure out how to fund this. Or find other grants to be able to do it with it and to be able to help their budget.
So is that a motion?
My motion is that we will approve this grant application. You want us to talk before I make the motion?
Might not be a bad idea.
Jason.
I appreciate your comment to that effect earlier today. It gave me a chance to do some additional research. And your point is a very logical one, that if the Parks and Recreation Commission, and this is something that the Parks and Recreation Commission has identified in their new one-year strategic plan that was ratified last Thursday night, is to write a grant to assist in the development of Maple Bay. And it's very logical. That I don't know why we haven't thought of that in the past, that those types of funds come from Parks and Recreation, but there are a few issues with that. According to the trust fund grant guidelines, the grant match can come from general fund dollars, which obviously general fund dollars come specifically and are the responsibility of the Board of Commissioners. County Parks and Recreation can't mandate the allocation of general fund dollars. That's something that has to come from the Board of Commissioners. Without the commitment from the Board of Commissioners, we don't have that resolution that is a requirement for the trust fund application to even go in. And that's something that the trust fund is very adamant about, that the highest ranking body in any organization that's eligible for trust fund grants has to be the board that provides the resolution in the funding match. The other item is that, like I said, I guess just to reiterate, that resolution that I was going to ask for this evening, or that I'm still asking for it, indicates a commitment from the county to match, either as a dollar amount or as a percentage amount. The other issue, and I guess this is something that's maybe more of a philosophical thing, the decision that the Parks and Rec Commission should make the commitments of funds for projects of this type is a logical one. Unfortunately, the power of the purse strings does not allow the Parks and Recreation Commission the consistency on an annual basis to make the commitment to a grant match, since this could easily be overturned during any budget crisis. For instance, if the budget crisis that's going on now, if you were to tell me, Jason, we have to put this on hold because of the current budget crisis, I'd have to tell you, we're not going to apply for this grant because you're not going to have that wrapped up by April 1st. So if the Parks and Recreation Commission committed to that, but the county was in some type of budget crisis, and in the 7 years I've been with the county, we've been there. The County Parks and Recreation Commission could be left in a bad position where they've committed those funds from the Parks and Recreation Fund, but the County Board of Commissioners is saying there's such a budget crisis that you can't commit that. And then that puts us into the situation that you mentioned a moment ago. Now, moving forward, if the Board of Commissioners would like to change how we've done business with the trust fund in the past, that would be great to know now, but our department's going to have to change the way it does business then, and this is something I'd have to talk with Dean and Dave about, operate, and I don't know that we can, but operate more like an enterprise fund where we're generating revenues that are greater than expenditures, and that would require some significant changes to our department. The other thing that would help out with this, if the county's actually going to move forward with a multi-year budget, a 2 to 3 year budget, and the Parks and Recreation Commission has the ability to plan and budget appropriately for these types of investments, that may be another option to achieve the idea that you had earlier today and you brought up just now. So, I appreciate you giving me a moment to say that.
Herb, or Larry?
I can go by Herb tonight. Jason, I guess the real question is, what is the feasibility of getting some outside sources? And I guess my feeling is that if you feel that you would have at least a shot at getting applying now and not apply, let's just say you don't apply for the grant this year, but your plans are to apply for it next year. And then you would go out now and get commitments for next year's match, to help next year's match with Rotary, as a possibility, the tribal grant, Acme Township, whoever else you can think of as a source to help offset the $104,000 match that would be anticipated by the grant. Would we be better off to hold off and get those commitments over the period of the next 6 months to 8 months, as we apply for funding for those next cycles, and then come back and say this would be the differential?
It's a good question, and I hate to answer it like this because it's the harder of the two answers, but it's the right one. It's feasible to raise $104,000 in the local grant match. So if we were to put this off for a year and I was seeking out other local grant matches, and resubmitted this grant in 2015 instead of 2014, that's a possibility.
Okay.
I think that's a better way of going.
That's what I'm thinking. This application that you're talking about for April filing date is probably distributed October, November?
It's typically the grants are, the award recipients are typically announced in December, and then in December of the following year is when the funding is actually allocated by the state legislature.
So you wouldn't actually have the money for a year and a half from now or better?
Correct.
What's your pleasure?
Question.
Charlie?
How much money we have invested over here thus far? That whole, it was 10 million or something?
In 2002, when we purchased the property, it was purchased with a $6.8 million DNR trust fund grant. The remainder of that $9.2 million was supplemented by various local organizations, and I want to say, working from recollection, I want to say it was about 30 grand from the county.
How usable is the facility now with respect to how usable it would be after this kind of an improvement?
Oh, huge.
Are we using it now? Is anyone using it?
Oh, yeah.
It's used now. It's used now very significantly. We have a variety of nature enthusiasts because of its proximity to the Tobago State Game Area and its proximity to East Bay. It has a half-mile of beach frontage. We get quite a few users. The development at this property would significantly increase the number of users that access the facility by bike and by canoe and kayak because of the two developments. That's part of the reason for those two developments is to coincide with the current focus of the Michigan Natural Resource Trust Fund, one of which is trails. And because Maple Bay, like I said, is at the intersection of the bikers and non-motorized boaters, it's a great opportunity for grant development dollars.
Is there any opportunity for revenue enhancement there with respect to something coming back to the parks? Or don't we have anything like that there?
From a revenue enhancement perspective, the lowest hanging fruit would be development of universally accessible pavilions, vault toilets, hand pumps, and grills.
Okay. Do you feel yourself waiting another year would be a disadvantage, or can we use that time?
We could certainly use the time. The challenge would be whether or not the Department of Natural Resource or the Michigan Natural Resource Trust Fund alters their focus for 2015. If they change that from, right now it's urban areas, wildlife sanctuary or wildlife habitat for acquisition grants, and urban parks. Those are their three focus right now. If they change those three focus and trails is out of the mix in 2015, we've lost a significant amount of points that we would otherwise gain from this grant in 2014.
Thanks. Other comments?
I want to support it, but I think we should support it. We got 10 million there.
I guess the comment that I would make is, I think this is a valid development of this property. It's an enhancement of this property. We already have a significant investment of natural resources monies and local monies in this park. It is a park that's, very, it is used a lot more than most people think it is. If you drive by and you see one or two cars there at a time, you don't think it gets used much, but there's a lot more use than you think. My problem is I want a new jail. And all of you know that I want a new jail.
Yeah.
And I can't have both. And in today's economy, I can't have both. And therefore, if a motion is made to make this application at this time, I can't support it. Do we have a motion on the floor?
I would make the motion to accept it.
You're going to make a motion to make the application?
Absolutely.
All right. Do we have a support?
You better help me, Herb.
I'll support you.
Thank you.
And I agree with you, Sonny. You've only got so much money there. But I really feel strongly that it needs to be done, but I also feel strongly that Jason has the ability to go out and get the matching funds between now and then to be able to make sure it happens. And knowing that the relationship of the board and the Parks and Recreation is, Park and Recreation, you got to figure out how to get the match. This is not, it may be, we may reduce your budget by $100,000 and then use it out of general funds.
Well, this is a 2-year deal.
So, but I think that Jason has the ability to go out and go after Rotary, go after some of these wildlife funds, and go after some of these other projects, go after Acme Township, go after the tribe for these kind of, and do the grants in that kind of a situation. We got 1.5 years before we, almost 2 years for now to be able to get to that point. And that's why I'm willing to support this budget, because I think I'm going to give the Parks and Recreation, you guys go out and do your work and get the money.
Chris?
Herb, at our budget meeting this afternoon, you were saying that you gotta say no once in a while.
Yeah.
I would agree that Jason is absolutely capable of going out and raising that money, but if I vote in favor of this motion, I am in effect telling the county administrator that I'm willing to put $104,000 for Maple Bay over the next 2 years. And Sonny is exactly right. We need a new jail. We need 911. We're talking about, we're going to be talking at some point tonight about the equipment and our fees and what we're going to do about that. You know, waiting a year, I don't think is going to kill us. And if he doesn't raise the money and we get the grant,
That's not on the agenda.
then what? And we turn it down. As you said, it's a,
That's not on the agenda.
Dean's got a
I wanna
comment.
Okay, That's not on the
Dean?
agenda.
Just a quick comment. Jason, with the points with the match, with the Regional Land Conservancy and being at 33 or 34%, it seems to me like the project itself, because of you've got two different things coming together at this property, do we really need the points in that area? And the reason I'm asking that is that would drop your cost from $104,000 down to probably $63,000. I'm doing, and I think I saw Dave do that too. Do we need 34% match on this? If we go back to just the 25%, in my quick calculations, that would drop the county's commitment down to about $63,000. And over 2 years, you know, that's not as big a pill to swallow. And I hear what everybody's saying, but I think for the number guys here to not kind of throw that out for consideration, probably wouldn't be doing our
Yeah, the
job,
maximum we can ask for in a development grant through the Department of or through the trust fund is $300,000, leaving us with $154,000 that we have to come up with. The Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy is willing to match $50,000, which leaves us with $104,000 to make up for.
Well, you know, I guess I don't understand that math though. If there's a 25% match requirement,
But their
About a
maximum
300.
grant amount
They have a
is
dollar cap.
350,000, and the project
They have a
costs
dollar
more than
cap.
Whatever's left
Okay.
over, you got to pay for.
Right,
and
So-
the project costs $454.
correct.
Okay.
David?
You know, and it is 2 years before we have to think about actually having that money in hand, which is 2 years to go out and look for at least the difference between 25% and 104,000. So that's at least something to shoot for. And from the numbers, guys, I mean, we look at this as a capital project, and if it's not a jail or a major facility, it's a one-time expense. You do it once, and you've got that, and then you're done. So, you know, I'm worried more about adding a half-time position than I am about paying this money, because the half-time position in 4 years will be $104,000. You know, in 2 years or 3 years will be $104,000, whereas this is $104,000 and it's done. And that asset is here in the community for a long time, which is I look at those differently. I look at these kind of projects a little differently than I look at, you know, the half-time position or the full-time position that somebody wants. I'm really resistant to adding staff if we can get away with not adding staff.
What do you think? I think that Jason ought to go after Antrim County, because I suspect that a lot more people from Antrim County use it than people from Grand Traverse.
that's true.
I know people down here don't even know where it is. So,
Larry?
My personal feeling is this has a lot of attraction
sure does.
for like the tribe. They're really into this stuff. Having open space and next to the water and, you know, access for the public and for tribal members, and they've got a casino right around the corner. I mean, they're really focused on the shoreline in that particular area. I think the tribe would be excited about it, just personally. I think Rotary Cherries would be excited about it. I think other sources would be excited about it. And to give you 18 months or whatever, no, because if it's a 2-year deal, you really got to come back, you know, within 6 to 8 months and say, you know, I've got these commitments and we're ready to go. But I guess I'm going to do a leap in faith in my vote and feel that you would have the community and you would have the ability to go out and obtain some matching funds to offset this $104,000. I think you can do it. And the other thing we got to think about is the whole discussion about increased crime and the child care fund and you know what the whole, and the discussion of the Board of Commissioners for the last 20 years is, if we don't provide some sort of recreational opportunities for family and kids, they're just going to find themselves in trouble, get in the system, and they're going to be sitting next to the sheriff, and we're going to have problems with our jail population and everything else. If we can get more kids and more families to Maple Bay by putting an investment in, that's going to pay dividends down the road in our criminal justice system. That's my personal feeling.
Yeah, I agree with that, actually. I think this thing we do up here about building our brand and stuff has a hell of a lot to do with parks and stuff. And this stuff will come back. They can show you on paper, when you make these investments, this makes a difference in your local economy. I find it kind of difficult to try to choose between the jail, you know what I mean? Because how do you say no? I agree, Sonny, but we've got $10 million invested over there. Why let it sit for $100,000?
We don't have anything invested.
I agree. No, we had to manage.
How about there's $10 million of SUV that ain't happening?
$9.5 million went through my hands when I got it over.
All right, but we didn't do that.
But we did match on that grant.
Didn't match much.
About 30 grand.
Yeah,
We have about 30,
Out of
we have
9
about
million, that ain't much.
$35,000 total invested in Maple Bay, I believe.
Yeah, but it's
Andy,
so
go ahead.
far out.
Andy Merritt, 2875 East Railroad Avenue, Interlochen, Michigan. I believe this is a great idea. I agree with Larry that anytime you can invest in something for children to go and enjoy, it helps reduce crime. I agree with Sonny, it's hard to spend money on a park when you got to build a new jail. I agree with Larry when he has high faith in Jason's ability to raise the money, but I would recommend that you add an amendment that, or amend the motion that Jason has to come up with $104,000 or a certain amount of money in matching funds before you can accept a grant from the DNR trust fund, therefore putting a little fire under Jason to get him to be a little higher motivated to ensure the county isn't out for the money. I have faith you can do it, Jason. Let's see if the commission believes that.
You know, I don't disagree with that, but I think Jason needs a clear resolution that doesn't have attachments to it. Because when the DNR gets this, they need that clarity. If we, on the other hand, say to Jason after this motion or during this motion, we expect that you're going to cover this money, it's not going to come out of general fund, that we're going to be able to give a clear resolution for him to be able to take the DNR.
The resolution has to be,
Has
that
clear.
we have a commitment of general fund monies to match this money.
Let's vote.
Correct. Roll call vote, please, sir.
What is, please say the motion
All right.
again.
You want to read the motion?
Do you want me to read the motion?
The motion by Rennie, supported by Limcool, to make application to the DNR Natural Resources Trust Fund for improvements at Maple Bay and pledging $104,000 of county general fund money for the match.
For over 15,016. Okay.
Are we ready?
Roll call.
Thomas.
No.
Inman.
Yes.
Rennie.
Yes.
Lathrop.
No.
Max Bauer.
No.
Lemcool.
Yes.
Wheelock.
There you go.
There you go, buddy.
No,
No?
I can't do it. All right, no, I can't do
Motion
it.
fails.
It's not that I don't support the project, and I really do, but I'm committed to get this jail built.
So does that mean it failed?
Go identify the money, come back and see us for next year's application,
All
or
right.
the fall application.
I wanted to thank you, Commissioners, for your comments related to this. I sincerely appreciate you taking this application request seriously.
There's another application in the fall too, right? So,
Not for the trust fund.
Oh, not for the trust fund.
Not for trust fund.
Okay, moving along, this brings us to Central Dispatch. That would be the Jamel and Jason story show here.
Jamel Anderson, Grand Traverse County 911 Director, and I'm here to ask for authorization to collect a surcharge, an additional surcharge of 42 cents, which is allowable by resolution. And there's a lot more background to this, but I'm going to keep it simple and short and just hope you all vote yes so we can go home.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Thomas, supported by Lathrop, to move forward with the levy of 42 cents surcharge on the night for 911 surcharge additional.
And this will be
Additional
on-
42 cents.
It's on
Discussion.
landlines
Larry?
and cell phones?
I'd like to hear from our civil counsel on his recommendation.
We did put together a memo to you. We put it together last week, and hopefully everybody has seen that. So I'm not going to repeat myself, but we'll say that, Jamel and I, we have discussed this as well as with other attorneys, and we do believe that the County Board of Commissioners is authorized to do what Jamel is proposing. However, it is a little unique. It's something that has not been tested yet, something that has been asked to be vetted by the Attorney General. That was a request made by Van Buren County. We haven't heard back from the Attorney General yet on whether this is lawful to do. And certainly, if you look at the statute that's at issue with this fee request, one way to interpret it is 42 by resolution, and that's it. Anything above that would have to go to the vote of the people. So it's quite possible that if the board adopts this resolution, and the resolution is then shipped to the Public Service Commission or the 911 Surcharge Committee, those public bodies would say, sorry, you can't do that. Again, my interpretation of the statute, as well as other attorneys' interpretations of that statute, is you can do what's being asked of you, but I just want to advise you of the risks.
Well, is there a risk?
Well, what I mean by risk is that, end of the day, the Public Service Commission could say, no, you can't do that. That's the risk.
Well, it took us, 2.5 years to get the Public Services Commission to make the ruling on the last thing, and the documentation at that point was we needed $1.25, and they came back with the recommendation that we could have 80.
It was like 7 years, a process of like
The
seven.
process was, even after we were down to the final thing, it took them another 2.5 years before they were there,
And the result of all that litigation doesn't even go into effect until July 1st when we start collecting the 80 cents. So we've been going around and around with this for a long time.
Chris?
I have a question for council. Would it help in our presentation to the Public Service Commission if we had an opinion from the Attorney General sooner rather than later? Because I happen to know where he's going to be very soon. It's called the Lincoln Day dinner.
Yeah, certainly would help. But I know that request for an opinion has been out there since January.
Yes, but
And here it is.
We can ask.
we can corner him
Yes, we can.
soon.
He's been cornered, trust me.
Well, he can be cornered again.
Well, keep going with it then.
Larry?
I guess this is the magic question of the evening, is that if we move forward and pass it, goes to the board and we pass it and then we implement it, and the Attorney General and/or the Public Service Commission reverse it, would we be responsible for remitting the increase back to them effective the date that we passed it?
No, I don't, no.
I don't
Would we
think
have-
the
Would we
levy-
have to pay back the amount we've charged?
No, there's nothing in the law that would require that, no.
Okay, so we would just have to discontinue the charge.
Right.
But each of the individual phone companies have to be able to put it on the charges.
Right.
That's the challenge.
Yeah. It's getting it past the Public Service Commission to getting it on the bill.
Right, so we can't put it on the bill until...
It's not going to make it to the
Oh,
bill.
so it has to go to the Public Service
It has
Commission
to go
to
to
get
the Public
approved?
Go to the
Service-
State
yeah.
911
Right.
committee.
Yeah, that's right.
State 911
Even if we adopt this tonight, then we notify the Public Services Commission that we have passed an additional 42 cents surcharge. After that, the Public Services Commission, as I understand it, is responsible to notify all of the phone companies doing business in Grand Traverse County that they have to levy that 42 cent surcharge.
Actually,
It's the 911.
it's the State 911 committee. What ha-
911 committee.
Okay, what happens is once a year, you have an opportunity to change your surcharge. And we missed the date last year because of all the litigation. And so we couldn't implement the 80 cents. We had to wait until May 15th is the filing date that the papers has to be into the State 911 committee. So we can submit for the 80 cents, which we're going to do, that's been awarded to us, and then if you choose to authorize this, that will be, the resolution will go into the State 911 Committee by the May 15th deadline, and then they notify all the carriers, and goes into effect July 1st for the new amount.
Most of the people that I know are paying a $200 a month cell phone bill. $1.22 is not going to make a significant difference. Actually, 42 additional cents. Charlie?
As it stands now, we're going to start collecting 80 cents July 1.
July 1, yep.
We in no way
From 66.
jeopardize that. Yeah, it went up from the 14 cents from all that litigation for 10 years.
Yes, that's correct.
We jeopardize none of that by putting another
No.
42 cent on it. We will get at least the 80.
Correct.
Okay.
Dan?
If, in the end, the powers that be say, no, you can't do this, can we fight that?
You could, and then that's really where the
That's where the
public,
10 years litigation came from.
yeah, that's where the Public Service Commission comes in.
You'll be here
That-
10 years.
Hopefully, yeah. Unless you guys are sick of me, but, yeah, that fight would take place at the Public Service Commission.
Okay.
And they would come down on yes or no. If they say no, you're stuck at 80. Of course, the alternative is you can always go to the people and ask for an increase in the millage.
Surcharge.
Right.
Yeah, or
Sorry,
surcharge, yeah.
or-
Right,
yeah.
surcharge, right.
Question for council?
Larry?
I guess I've just never seen a circumstances where we've done this kind of increase to the public without first holding a public hearing. So my question to council is that if we pass this motion, we would have to have a public hearing at the board meeting regarding this issue?
Not by state law.
Not by state law?
No.
Okay, all right.
This can be done by board resolution.
Well,
right.
I think it's important that
Hold
the
a public
public
hearing next
knows that if we vote on it today, they can come out en masse next week, Wednesday, if they don't support it, or if they want to support it, come out and say, we need to support
I
it.
just want to see if there's a requirement.
Well,
Yeah, so it's not really a public hearing, but they got time to be able to make comments.
Understand.
So we're not doing this immediately and expecting that we're hiding it from them to be able to have any comment. So next Wednesday, they could come in and comment on this.
We spent a great deal of time in our earlier meeting this afternoon talking about capital improvement plans and the need for capital investments. And if you notice on your recommendation, they're also requesting that revenue obtained from this go directly toward capital funding purchases for the 911 center. Here is an opportunity for us to find a revenue that we can denote to go specifically toward the upgrading of our 911 equipment.
How cool is that?
That would be
It's
great.
very cool.
Yeah.
So we do. Let's do it.
Any further discussion? Comments from the public? Roll call vote, please, sir.
Inman.
Yes.
Rennie.
Yeah.
Lathrop.
Heck, yes.
Maxbauer.
Absolutely.
Lemkool.
You better believe it.
Thomas.
Yep.
Wheelock.
I'm just going to say yes because I know there's just yes and no check boxes. She can't possibly have any place to check those other ones. You will take care of notifying the 911 committee?
Yes,
all the
I've-
It's got to go to the
additional
board
surcharge?
meeting.
We'll have to,
Yeah.
we'll
Oh,
have
at
to
the board
approve,
meeting.
ratify it next
Yeah.
week at the Board of Commissioners.
Right. I've been holding off on the paperwork, submitting it because wait to see what would happen with
Could
this.
you have the final paperwork available to us next week so we can ratify that as part of our discussion?
Sure.
And then that will be the formal documents that we will approve and the chairman will sign and forward it on to them.
Yay. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Jason, did you have anything you wanted to add, or you're just going to sit back and relax? Thank you very much. Okay, this brings us to Finance Committee, General Fund Trial Balance. Dean?
I'll be brief. This is through the end of February. If you're looking at the trial balance, just, there's not a whole lot there to pull from that. But if you look at page, I believe it's 45 and 46, there's a comparison with year-to-date revenues through the end of February this year with last year. And you can see on page 45, our revenues are more than a year ago, and that's primarily the timing of the state convention and facilities payment, which in the prior year, we had recorded it at year end and didn't make the adjustment in the accounting records, but this year we were more timely in doing that, so it's a timing difference only. It's not indicating that revenues are actually $400,000 more, so that explains that main revenue difference. On the next page, expenditures, you're seeing year-to-date our expenditures are lower than they were a year ago at this time, but that's mainly due to two things. We had one more payroll in recorded at 228 last year versus this year. So one payroll makes explains all of the differences in the first 5 categories, and then the transfers out are a timing difference. We have not recorded all of the transfers at the end of February, so there's nothing out of line with the budget, but I did want to briefly explain those variances. So unless there are any questions, we can move on. Keep it brief.
Budget adjustments?
There are a number of budget adjustments. Most of these are housekeeping in nature. On page 48, in December, you did approve the Rapiscan body scanner for corrections. The invoices for that did not come in, though, until January, so I needed to cover that expenditure with some transfer-in money that wasn't budgeted, and there's a MMRMA RAP grant for the other 50%. The revenue sharing reserve amount that we can transfer is actually higher than what we initially budgeted. That's the second item. We're budgeting the actual fund balance to use in the Veterans Trust Fund. Making some, on page 49, the Commission on Aging Finance Committee wanted to amend their budget for the last-minute changes to the budget because of lower personnel costs with the health changes, and they wanted to reduce the use of fund balance. That's what you're seeing on page 49. That's an overall reduction in their total budget. And then there are some additional Commission on Aging and Senior Center budget adjustments on page 50. The Grand Traverse Band grant for the vehicle is the first item on the top of the page, and then some additional, the appropriation for the, I'm not sure who that's for, area agency. 2 appropriations are in that amount.
Yes, it's the AAA, Area Agency on Aging.
And then the last item on that page for the senior center is reducing their budget because of the personnel changes that we made in late December. And then there are a couple of budget amendments that Jerry Pugh has requested for the health department. So I would ask for your approval of all of these budget adjustments.
So move for approval. Second.
Motion by Thomas, supported by Lathrop. Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Blow your horn.
You know I won't do that, but the...
We will. We will.
The next item, I'm very happy to report that our 2012 audit report, which has a fancy name, it's called our Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. We did submit that to the Government Finance Officers Association, and I'm very happy to report that we did receive their certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting. And that is the 8th year that we have received that. We do not have the plaque yet. We will be very, very proud to put that on the wall as you come into the governmental center. They're on the first floor by the elevator. And despite the fact that I'm mentioned in the letter, I have a lot of support in doing this. I don't do this on my own. Everyone contributes to this, and I was a little concerned that we weren't going to get this, because we normally are notified of this early in January, and you can see this came in to the chairman almost the end of February. So I was a little concerned that they do give us, we score proficient in all of the categories. They do give us a suggestion or a letter for improvements, and we will implement those when we put together the 2013 CAFR. And that process will start Monday of next week because we're expecting the auditors to show up, and we do this in connection with our annual audit. So I was happy that we received the award again.
You know, I tend to harass Dean occasionally, but I believe I was board chairman when the first plaque arrived, and I'm very proud to say that the citizens of our community are very well served by Dean Bott and his staff. Dan?
I'd like to say hooray!
Good job.
And I feel sorry for whoever has to follow in your footsteps.
Okay.
You've set a high bar.
He had a good teacher.
Glenn.
Glenn was a good teacher.
Well, and don't forget Bill Rokas, so can't forget about that.
All right, if that's all for the Finance Department, we'll move to unfinished business. The first item is Commissioners' compensation for 2015-16. Jen, you have the floor.
Jen Seaman, Human Resources Director. This is a follow-up from last month, and some additional information has been provided to you regarding Commissioner compensation. In the spreadsheet document, we added 2012 and 2013 totals, and then over far to the right-hand side, the per commissioner amount, what was spent in total for salary, per diems, health insurance, and everything. So,
Clarification, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Since this was at the last month's meeting of RMA, I believe, February RMA,
Yeah.
and there were 6 of us present. Commissioner Lathrop was excused, and there was a vote to, there was a motion on the floor and a second to have the county commission compensation remain the same as it is for this election cycle, and that one went down 3-3, so there was no action taken. My question to council is, given our board rules, can someone on the side of that made the motion make the same motion, or would it take a different motion from someone else? And what procedure
Well,
we need to go through on this thing?
I mean, if what you're saying is, can you reconsider it?
Yeah, we can do a motion to reconsider, but it takes 2/3 vote.
Well, yeah, I think there is a way to bring it back. I don't think reconsideration is the right way to do it.
I mean, it was a 3-3 tie, but it didn't like fail from a majority vote, but.
Right. You
So-
know, one thing you could always do is just suspend your board rules.
Or just consider a different motion.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Herb?
Yeah, mainly, I just want to go through this thing to just let everybody know that in 2012, the commissioner compensation was $49,000. This 2013, the commissioner compensation is $35,000. That's a savings of $14,000. That's because we reduced our commissions from 9 to 7. Per diems dropped from $50,370 in 2012 to $40,625. That's another savings of $9,745. So a savings of about $23,000. Total compensation for 2012 was $99,320. So that's a savings of almost a quarter, about 25% savings, that our commissions have been able to do that. So my proposal would be the recommendation that the commissioner compensation include per diems. And the chair received $13,000, the vice chair $11,000, and each commissioner receives $11,000. That's including per diems.
Wow.
And plus other
Say the,
compensation.
What is a regular commissioner?
A regular commission would be $11,000.
The same as the vice?
Vice Chair?
Excuse me.
Vice Chair,
No,
what's
no, chair is 13, vice chair is 12, commissioners are 11,
And all other compensation remain the same?
and everything else remains the same.
But there's no per diems.
But there's no per diems.
Oh, no per diem?
No per diems. That includes your per diems.
Oh,
So that's my motion.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have support?
Hell no.
Okay. Seeing no support, motion dies for lack of second. Do we have another plan?
I'll make a motion, we leave things as they are.
I second it.
By the way they are, does that mean per diems with salary?
salary. It'd be the
The
current
same.
compensation.
That would-
The
Same package.
one
Same
thing is that the committee we set up has got to go through and define the rules
Yes.
to get per diem straightened out so everybody understands.
That meeting is at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. We will define what constitutes a per
Okay.
diem.
So your motion on the floor is to,
Leave
same
things the
salary,
way-
same benefit level,
And I second that.
everything outlined. Okay.
Discussion, Dan? Yes.
I like that because some of us work harder than others, not because any of us are lazy, but some people have bigger committee assignments. Some people have the time to put into it, and you ought to get paid for what you do. I don't like per diems because I don't keep good records, and I have to bug Dave's staff all the time to, when we're the meetings and stuff, but still, I think that's the fairest way to, and also, I think that then people aren't going to perceive that we gave ourselves a raise. And if we cut out per diems and raise our salary to $11,000, God knows what people are going to say. So I think for those two reasons, that getting paid for what you do, some of us do more than others, and then there could be no contest from the community that we gave ourselves a raise.
The biggest reason why I come up with this motion of leaving things the same, I'm not that wild about per diems, but on the other hand, there's nothing in the law that says you have to come to any meetings. So if you don't have the per diems, we wouldn't need as many chairs because we wouldn't have as many people here.
Well, I'm not sure that there's any of us in this room that
I'm
are
not
doing
saying these
it,
people.
that are doing it for the money. I'm pretty confident of that.
That's true.
Larry?
I would just like to add to Commissioner Lemko's comments that the Board of Commissioners has not taken an increase since 2001 in
Right.
any item of our compensation, including per diem and salary, where other elected officials and other staff members have. And you could tell by the survey, other boards of commissioners in our grouping, in terms of our population grouping, when they did the comparison, have made increases in their compensation. That being said, I can't speak for their counties and their financial position, but my personal feeling is that until the Board of Commissioners, and it'll have to be dealt with and for the next Board of Commissioners to deal with, is I think that this board should send a strong message not only to the public, but to the people that work here, that we're going to continue not to give ourselves any increases until the budget is stabilized. We've gotten some of our projects through, like the jail and a classification plan. And, the big question is when we go to concessions for contracts, they're going to look at the Board of Commissioners. If we give ourselves a raise, they're going to want a raise. So I think we got to hold firm, and even though as painful it might be, and we're worth more in terms of compensation, based on the study and us not getting any increases since 2001, I think the next election cycle, I think we have to maintain everything as is and not give ourselves any increases.
Charlie?
I think the point is well taken, that some districts have more requirements than other districts. The per diem takes that out of the wash.
Yeah.
As far as $11,000, Dick's talking about people not sitting here. You start asking people to do this for 10 or 11,000 period, you're going to have nobody sitting here.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
really?
but you don't have to go to meetings. The only thing that forces you to go to meetings is you probably lose the next election.
Okay, but that's up to the individual, I understand
Well-
that.
Well, I guess I'll make a couple comments on one. I think we missed the boat in 2012, when the decision was made to go from 9 commissioners to 7. I believe that was the time that this county board should have taken the $63,000 that was paid to the 9 commissioners and paid it to the 7, because the workload that we have today is not any smaller than the workload we had 2 years ago when there was 9 of us to do it. You know, the fact that there's 7 of us to make all of the different committee meetings in all the different places means that each one of us has more meetings to get to. So therefore, you're going to have some elevated per diem numbers. How individual commissioners handle per diems varies from one end of this room to the other. You know, I historically, by far, have the smallest per diems. I have a lot of places that I go to, I make my 5-minute presentation and I walk out and you don't get a per diem for those. You know, it's just the way I do it, but that's my choice, not a board policy. I think we're going to see firm regulations or guidelines as to what qualifies for a per diem coming out of tomorrow's meeting. I hope to have that to you at least a draft of that to you for the Board of Commissioners meeting next week, so we can have this taken care of as part of this same function. So it's when we define the salary for commissioners, we will have the policy of what qualifies for a per diem, so as that the package is intact before the filing date deadline. That being said, you know, I'm not sitting in this chair for the money. You know, my W-2 form, I believe last year was $12,200. If I figured that out by the hour of how many hours I spend either here or on the telephone with someone or in a meeting somewhere, I don't even want to talk about what the price per hour would be. You know, and there's a lot of days that I leave my business where it's, you know, costing me a lot more than $35 to come here.
Yeah.
You know, but that's a choice that I have made, and I've sat here for a long time, and I continue to make that choice. Herb?
Yeah, you know, I've been putting this out into the community a lot, and a lot of the people in the community are saying, do yourself a base pay and get rid of the per diems, because that is the most controversial part of our compensation. So, because everybody is treated differently, and, you know, this per diem and this salary is not going to affect any one of us. Those of us that are not going to be here next year, it's not going to affect us at all. But we have to have this in place before the filing deadline, which is April 10th.
22nd.
22nd? So, you know, and I just really feel strongly that, you know, that it takes a lot of paperwork, a lot of time to be able to do it. And I thought that the money that I presented showed that we weren't going to get a raise. You know, that's using the same money that we've had before. So there is no raise in there. There is no additional compensation. There may be for somebody like Sonny, who doesn't do all the meetings that a lot of people, but like he said, he walks in, does his presentation, walks back out. He was still there. He was still making those presentations. He was still making the report to the people in the community. He was still actively involved as a county commissioner. Those kind of things should be taken care of. So I really feel strongly that we should be doing this proposal. You know, and we're not into it for the money. Absolutely not. We're not making minimum wage with the money that I'm proposing. Most of us work far more hours, or at least 20 hours a week, if not more, at being a commissioner. A lot of us spend maybe 30 hours. You know, it depends by the time you put all the reading of all the packages, going to all the meetings, getting all the phone calls from the people, taking care of some of the issues that we're presented with. You're working a lot more than 20 hours a week. And that's why I think this is a fair proposal, and I would encourage you to vote for it.
Are you talking about?
No, there's a motion.
That's not the motion on the floor.
The motion I made.
Well, yeah, but
You didn't get a second,
You didn't get a
sir.
support.
the motion,
Did we vote that down?
No, you
You
never got a
didn't get
second.
it. You never got
Oh,
support.
I didn't get a
That
support.
motion
Okay.
died. The motion on the floor is to keep everything
Yeah,
the
it was
same.
very, very good, Herb. You're just a little late.
I found your comment interesting, and I've heard other commissioners say the same thing. We need a steadfast policy that the public can understand on these per diems, and then everybody, whether they're feeling good or not, should comply with it. All this different, I don't go, sometimes I go, this is what causes this confusion. We should have a policy, and it should be followed, period.
We have had for years. It's in the rules.
Excuse me?
It has been in the rules for years.
It needs to be better
The
defined.
board rules tell you what you can
But
charge for.
there truly isn't a good definition.
We just had a little issue with this past year.
Well, I can't help
Mr.
that. They're there. Now, there's some things in there that should be changed, but they're in there.
Well, we pulled them out of board rules, Dick. We got
No, we
them.
didn't.
We have them in the separate rules. We did check.
Yeah.
They're in the separate resolution now. Yeah.
All right,
Anyway,
is
let's vote on
there
it.
further discussion?
Let's vote.
All right, the motion on the floor is to retain the salary of a county commissioner at $7,000, the vice chairman at $7,500, the chairman at $8,000, and commissioners will get $35,000, or $35.
$35,000.
$35 as a per diem for meetings that meet the per diem criteria, which will be defined.
I like that.
And you need to go on. You have the retirement, life,
Yeah, and
dental, health, copay,
It's the same that we
You don't
had.
have to read it.
as,
Same as we
as
have.
in here.
And that's, I'm sorry, Sonny,
Yes,
Commissioner
dear.
Wheeler?
Yes, ma'am.
And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the, one of the concessions that the employees did give up was not the health insurance, which you also currently have, and also the reduction in the retirement plan is now to 6% for all new hires that started at January 1st of this year or after. So the match from the county went down from 9% to 6% for 250 approximately of our employees, those that were up. So I have to mention that.
And all of those criteria, as outlined in this resolution, will stand in place.
Are we down on 6 cents here, right? Aren't we part of that 250?
No.
We did not make that
I'm-
change? We're still 9 cents?
I'm talking,
We're still 9.
Someone who is seated is at 9%, and MERS
Until
does not
any new
allow us to
commissioners.
make that change either.
Right.
You know, if we're in an existing plan, we cannot make changes to that plan.
I take 0.
right. So for commissioners, it would be 6% starting January 1 of 2015.
Correct.
For new commissioners.
Yeah, 'cause
For
we
new,
just- we
for
just-
new commissioners.
Yeah, 'cause we just
None of you
followed.
would apply if you're in the retirement system. If you're currently in it, you would get the benefits that you're currently under, just like our employees. But I just want to make sure that that is clear, that that change would take effect January 1 of 2015 for all new commissioners,
All right. Fair enough.
should you choose to approve that.
Is there further discussion?
Nope.
Roll call vote, please.
Inman,
Yes.
Rennie,
Yeah.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Lemkool,
No.
Thomas,
Yes.
Wheelock.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes care of Commissioners' compensation. The item that I added in regard to unfinished business was the Jail Siting Committee. And I guess my point, and the reason that I asked to put this on the agenda, is last week we made the commitment to move forward with the possible construction of a new jail. We talked about the enrolling the designated team to attend the National Institute of Corrections program in Colorado. That program's not available to us until August. At least for my thoughts, I don't want to sit on my hands for 5 months. We have already had preliminary reviews by the Department of, or the Institute of Corrections here previously. We had a 20-member Blue Ribbon Jail Committee that spent an extensive amount of time reviewing our jail needs. They came up with a recommendation that we needed 250 to 300 beds by 2020. Well, we're almost there. We have preliminary outlines that tells us what size a piece of property that we need, how much geographic space it's going to take. We have a site master plan of the Lafreniere property that the county owns that shows that site there, if it's the chosen site. I would like to proceed, my recommendation is that we proceed with the appointment of the Citizens Committee to identify the site. whether the jail is podual, whether it's a linear jail, whatever the construction's going to be, we know that we're going to need 10 to 12 acres approximately of property to site that jail on. We need to start the process to site that jail. The final design of the jail can be done after the August visit or after National Institute of Corrections comes here. But we need to start the process as to where this jail needs to be sited.
Can I make that motion?
I would entertain that motion.
Let's go for it.
Okay, I have a motion by Rennie, supported by Lathrop, to move forward with the citing of a citizen committee to cite the new Grand Traverse County Jail. Further discussion. Larry?
Well, just a quick one. The old study, I believe, had it was some time ago, as you know, and the population has changed. And certainly, there's a greater possibility that we would need more beds than what was previously discussed in the previous study. And my understanding is that if, we've already made contact with the National Corrections Institute in Colorado, and I've just learned from the administrator that there would be an advance team come to Grand Traverse County prior to the August session that the commissioners and staff would go to, and they would give you, once they arrive and do their due diligence, they would give you an assessment of what size facility you would need, a number of beds and a number of low, medium, and high-risk cells, and those kinds of things. And from there, that would give you the size of the facility, which would, in essence, tell you the size of the property and the infrastructure you would need for that facility. So I guess my question to the administrator is, based on your discussion, it seems to me that, if I'm sitting on the Citizens Advisory Committee, I'd want that information before I go out and start citing. So what's the timing of getting that in versus trying to, would we just apply, just put something out in the paper and say, we're looking for volunteers, to do this for us, and would it take several months for them to assemble? And by then, what's the timing of these people coming in and actually giving this committee that hopefully would come together the information they need to determine the size of the facility and the acreage for the facility? So we're not asking them to go on old data. Question.
Where to begin?
I just don't want to rush this thing, get them in, and then they're working on old data, and then you got to go over new data, which is totally different.
And your point is so well taken, because I have been in the hurry up and do it wrong category in my career several times dealing with jails, and you really do have to do it right. And one of the things you got to really think about is there's some decisions that have to be made before you can ask somebody else to make a decision. One of the key decisions is what's going to go in this building. Sheriff going in this building, law enforcement going in this building, detectives going in this building, community corrections going in this building, adult probation going in this building, what's going in this building? And that's a big footprint question. If you don't know what your footprint is, you really can't tell them to find a site yet, because you don't know how big the footprint is. And you really need to hire a facilitator that can lend some expertise to the process, that, an architect preferably, that has been through working with citizens and can help with the site search process and the site selection process and put the criteria together, because the criteria is the key to the whole site. What goes on that site? What goes in that site? Does it have to be next to a main road? Yes, it probably does. It'd be a good idea. I mean, they're going to make those suggestions, and the NIC will help with that. But, I am kind of, although I understand you don't want to take this whole summer and just wait, we could put a committee together, but to get the right information in their hand and get the facilitator ready for them and get all those things ready is going to take some time.
Well, my point, I guess, is the fact that it's going to take us time to select a facilitator. It's going to take us time to answer the questions that you just asked for. And I'd like to get started on that process. Whether we set up, we're going to have to have discussions with the sheriff. We're going to have discussion, with the planning department, because they are involved in the siting of all county buildings. and we're, there's some of that's going to take some time. But if we can get started with some of that, saves us waiting until we get back here in September and then start the process. I'm not saying that you're gonna go out this week and pull down the list of the people that were on the old Blue Ribbon Jail Committee and say, oh, yep, we're gonna appoint these people, the ones that are still surviving, because of the fact that they already have the history. Because you're exactly right, our numbers have changed in 10 years. But at the same time, the Blue Ribbon Committee, through multiple ways of methodology, came up with the idea that we needed 250 to 300 beds. So maybe now the number is 300 to 325 beds. I don't know that. But the thing about it is, citing the location and putting together the committee is going to take some time. It's not something we're going to do in the next 2 weeks. But we need to, at least in my mind, I'd like to proceed with that process. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the reasons that we hired the administrator that we hired was his experience. And he has experience in jails. And I don't.
The right experience in jails.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
On the right
Thanks for
side
qualifying
of the
that.
bars.
And
Out of the 200 sections, I'm sure I'm on the inside of the outside.
what his suggestion is weighs heavily with me. I do not want to start a committee immediately if that is not what he thinks the first step ought to be. And I know he might be hesitant to disagree with the chairman here, but Dave, what do you believe is the first step? Is it a facilitator? Is it this committee?
It's going to the...
Well, we can start on the process of selecting a facilitator for the selection process. We can start on that process by developing a request for qualifications and putting it out there and getting responses back, and then talking about price with those folks and getting them lined up. We can do that. In the meantime, before the committee, before a citizen committee can be appointed, well, we can appoint them, but you don't want to appoint them today and wait until, July or September to get them to work. I mean, if you can get everything in place before then, that's great. You're going to need the data.
Yes.
The information that the NIC is going to come in for free and go and visit the jail and talk to the judges and do their thing with data.
Yes.
And they're going to come back with some new data for us. Now, that's going to allow us to talk about, what population we have and how big a jail we need and all that, and whether it's the numbers change from 250, which I assume it has, to a higher number. But we need to make some other decisions. What else is going in there? What criteria are we going to put on that committee? Because the committee can't make that decision without listening to the Board of Commissioners say, and the Board of Commissioners has to listen to the sheriff and adult probation and the judges and everybody who's an impact of the city of Traverse City. And, if we're going to move, for example, if we were to move the jail site out onto Lafreniere, that's outside the city limits. That's going to be a big issue. So there's a lot of things to talk about that we can start talking about right now. Those are the things that need to be settled before we appoint a committee.
I agree. Before we appoint the citizens, but yet we still need to start, we certainly have the ability by which to start the process.
Correct.
And that's the
in my mind, the discussion that I had is more to start the process than it is to pick out individual citizens to sit on this committee.
Before we get to a citizen committee, I would like to let the administrator, he understands where we're going. I'd like to let him go in that direction before we immediately start involving citizens. Please. And so I won't be supporting this.
Charlie?
I kind of agree with Commissioner Wheelock on this. I think we could get a committee going just to discuss and think about some of these basics.
If that's what you want to put them out there for site selection.
Not necessarily a citizens
there's some
committee,
things that
but
have to
some
be done before
experts to
site
say this
selection,
is
yeah.
sort of where we're going to have to go with this.
Okay.
Give us some information to get it started, as Sonny recommends.
Dick?
I think we had the right site picked 10 years ago when we were talking about this. we've got enough room on Lafreniere, because there's probably close to 20 acres left, isn't there, Sonny?
I don't remember.
Pretty close. And it's got natural gas, it's got the water, it's got the sewer, it's got everything we need right there. I think that should be our prime location. However, if we come up with something that we can't do, then we look for others. But, you know, here's a place where we're spinning our wheels. We already spun them 10 years ago.
I made that motion one night.
I know you did. If I remember right, I supported it.
I'd like a little time to think about this and talk to you folks and others about this on how to approach getting those answers. It might mean that we will have to have a special meeting with judges and with the sheriff and others, stakeholders, just on the jail topic, on some of those critical questions where what are our constraints and what are our, let the city weigh in. I mean, just get that conversation going. And I think that's the first step.
We absolutely have to start the process. I just don't want to sit on our hands for 5 months before we start the process.
So how would you make a motion that we can get going get this thing started? Ad hoc committee? I mean, what do you want to do?
David, what's your opinion? Is this something we try to do as a entire board? Is this something a couple of us meet with the sheriff and the judges?
You can have the whole board.
What's your recommendation?
I think this is a board process. I think the Board of Commissioners needs to make some pre-decisions, pre-action decisions that will define where we're going. And it's just critical that the board make those decisions, because when they start looking at sites, they're going to say, but what does the board want us to do? Can we leave the city? Can we move it from downtown? Can we? And they're going to ask those questions. So we need to open up that conversation with judges and the city and everyone that is involved now. That's the first step, in my opinion.
I have a suggestion, is that we not vote on this matter now and direct the administrator to come back to the board meeting with something in writing in terms of what he's recommending for the process in an approximate timeline, and make a recommendation at the board meeting.
I would agree with that. And when would you have that together, you think?
I can throw together, I've already outlined it for you a little bit.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of putting it down in writing.
So in that case, we would withdraw the motion that you made and withdraw the second that Dan made?
I would withdraw that.
I'm amenable to that.
And we will see a timeline and a formal recommendation next week with how to proceed with this process.
Right.
What I was asking for basically was that we not sit on our hands for 5 months before we get started.
See, and you were wondering what you were going to do this weekend.
Okay.
Let's see.
Yeah, I think you're asking an awful lot. We just had our budget meeting. We outlined a whole lot of things that Dave was supposed to do on top of everything else that he's already doing. And, to ask him to come back in a week to be able to give that kind of information.
I'm good with a month, really.
Yeah,
I'll give you a month.
He's already made the comment that without an assistant, he's really overloaded.
You going to MAC next week?
And so, I really think that.
Do advance meetings, too.
That we just encourage him to put together a process and figure out what we're going to do and bring it to us in a timely manner. So, because there may be other things that come into the process, going to MAC, going to NACO, sitting down with some of these other people, it may change how he's going to be able to make this presentation.
Yeah,
Give him some time to be able to put this thing together.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I agree.
We never itemized.
Head nodding, we're okay with that?
Yes, we're okay with that.
We're just going to proceed with the process.
Right.
Yes,
And
we are.
Right.
Send us a report when he's.
Yeah.
Hang in there, Sonny, we'll get there.
It will be okay. It will be okay.
I know he does. He's got the backhoe.
Can we move forward?
All right, moving on. That's the end of unfinished business. The only item we have under new business, I distributed to you, and the sheriff is here. He is requesting to purchase some patrol vehicles. These items are in his 2014 budget, and I'll allow the sheriff to speak.
He's waited all evening.
Oh, by the way, hats off to the Spartans on the Big Ten. They beat Michigan.
Thank you. Tom Bensley, Grand Traverse County Sheriff. First, let me make just a couple of comments on your most recent discussion. Thank you for your comments on the new jail. I agree with Commissioner Wheelock. Commissioner Inman indicated this is a 5-year process. And I think that's probably, for several reasons, a perfect example of Commissioner Max Bauer's comment that government moves at glacial speed, okay? I'm not asking you to speed up the process. I'm not asking you to cut any corners. I think, I don't know how, we had a very good meeting Monday with Mr. Benda, Captain Hall. How can we walk and chew gum at the same time here without just sitting on our hands for 5 months until a group goes to Colorado? I'm not trying to shortcut anything. I think there are a lot of things that can be talked about. Probably one of the most important is the Sheriff's Office, Law Enforcement Division, going with the new jail in one building. That raises several questions. Number one, if it's not in the city, we will split with the city police department because they will not, I'm quite sure, discussions with the chief, have their offices outside of the city. We have the issue with the buildings on Woodmere and Front Street. I believe it's October 8th, that contract, which is 30 years old, expires. The county doesn't think they're getting a very good deal on the arrangement, and the city doesn't think they're getting a very good deal on the arrangement. So, Mr. Benda, good luck with all that.
Thank you.
So that's going to be a difficult issue to work through. That's just a sidelight of some of the many questions that are going to come up during this process. So if there's some way that we talked about this Monday, we can walk and chew gum at the same time, maybe we can get that glacial speed up to, I think somebody said, a snail's pace, okay? So with that, in an attempt to move at more than a glacial speed, we opened bids for vehicles last week. And the main reason that we're coming to the board tonight is that the money is in the budget. We have identified Dodge Chargers for police cars for the uniformed officers. The bids are pretty straightforward on the patrol cars for the Dodge Chargers. They're all V8 rear-wheel drive. They do make now an all-wheel drive Dodge Charger. It's brand new. I'm very skeptical of anything that just comes out. We've had some bad luck with all-wheel drive, front-wheel drive vehicles in the past. So we're not asking for those. These are the rear-wheel drive cars. We would like somebody else to test drive those for a few years in other departments throughout the state or the country before we go for that. The other is we started a process a couple of years ago with replacing the SUVs that our sergeants drive. Unfortunately, there has not been enough money to do everything at once. We've replaced 4 of the vehicles. We're now asking to replace the other 2 for our sergeants with like Chevrolet Tahoes. What you see is, in regards to the Tahoes, there's 3 bids for 2015 Tahoes and 1 bid for 2014 Chevy Tahoes. Our preference is for the 2014, believe it or not. Why? Because it's the same as the 2013 and 12s that we do have. They are, if you're looking at the local bid, a little cheaper. We attempt to maintain uniformity in everything we do with uniforms, equipment, weapons, and vehicles. The vehicles that we have now, the Tahoes, we have no issues with them. We know what we have. We like it. we know what equipment we have, what equipment that will transfer in there, and how that will fit, and how it will be put together. They are available right now. We can have those within a week. The newer models won't be available for 10 weeks. It takes obviously some time to transfer these over. The bottom line is, we know what we have, we like those, and we'd like to round out the fleet, if you will, of the sergeant's vehicles with the 2014 Tahoes from Berger Chevrolet in Grand Rapids. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Charlie?
I'd like to make a motion to purchase 4 V8 rear-wheel drive 2014 Dodge Chargers from Sterling Heights Dodge, $22,998 each, as well as 2 2014 Chevrolet 4x4 Tahoes from Berger at $31,685 each.
You're going to make that immediate?
Immediate.
For immediate effect, so is that they can place the order for these vehicles.
Let's do it.
We have a motion. Do we have support?
Second.
Motion by Rennie, supported by Inman, to move forward with the purchase of 4 2014 Dodge Chargers and 2 2014 Chevy Tahoes for use for the sheriff's office. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Rennie?
Yes.
Lathrop?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Lemkool?
Yep.
Thomas?
Yep.
Inman?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am. You have a purchase order.
Thank you very much.
Could I ask the sheriff a question
Yes.
on the jail? I have a blind question here. The city police, I've never been arrested, so I don't know the answer to this question. If I'm arrested by the city, yes, knock on wood.
Should have been.
We could put you through a process.
If the city police arrest me, do they take me to jail?
Yes.
So it would not interest them in driving me as a city resident all the way to Blair Township, would it? I mean, that would not be where they would want to cite a
If
jail.
that's, well, no, I don't think so.
I'm just-
You know,
it
when
just-
you look at the population and who might be involved with use, if you will, at the jail, and the sheriff's office, okay, it's in the north part of the county. It's in the metropolitan area. Long Lake, Garfield, East Bay, Acme Townships, and the city of Traverse City. That's where all the people are, so.
The reason I ask that question is, should we include, this is just for the administrator, should we include the Traverse City Police Chief in any of
Absolutely.
your discussions? Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The city administrator, the police, the chief of police, the judges are
I just
all-
hadn't heard
are
that
all
mentioned.
members at 1 out of
stakeholders
10.
in
Okay,
this.
All
thank you.
stakeholders, Chris.
We could rent the old jail to the city.
Just a comment. It was not my opinion that the process takes 5 years. It was Mr. Michael Jackson, who is in charge of the National Institute of Corrections, and all of his experience dealing with local communities, from the day you make a decision that you want to build a jail until the day you open it, it's generally 5 years, and that was the statement he made, so.
Unless you have
That
Cindy
wasn't, that
Wheelock
was,
on your board.
that wasn't my opinion.
Well,
That was his opinion.
One of the things that we do have going for us is the history piece of what the Blue Ribbon Jail Committee did before.
Yeah.
You know, and sure, we've got to update some data, but that was better than a year-long process that we should not have to repeat in its entirety.
True. Good point.
You know, so
Thank you.
I still think we can get this thing done in 3 years.
All right.
We move on.
Probably 4.
Okay, moving forward, this brings us to the second opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone wishing to make comment at this time?
You'll have to line up.
Can I just do it from here?
Sure.
There's the
No.
Lincoln Day dinner next Wednesday.
It's not on TV.
Oh, yeah, you don't get on TV unless you're up at the podium.
Yeah. Problem with their hours.
The Lincoln Day dinner, this is Karen Rennie. The Lincoln Day dinner is next Wednesday. It starts at, is it 5 or 5:30, Larry?
5:30.
Your meeting could be scheduled for 7. That means your commissioners could come. and say hello to your Attorney General. So that would be my
Corner our
suggestion.
Attorney General.
Thank you.
Okay. No, seeing no other public comment, Commissioner Committee reports?
Couple of things. The budget meetings are scheduled for Friday, Wednesday, and Friday of next week.
No,
No, just Friday and Wednesday.
We dropped the Friday.
we dropped the Friday.
We dropped
All
it.
we have is the 26th.
Okay, so my recommendation is we're done with the budget meetings. We don't need to do those meetings anymore. Is that right?
Well, we need, in my
Maybe.
opinion, we don't need them immediately until they come back with some further data from MERS and the pension account and all this other stuff, so.
Right, but we don't need
We're
to do
looking-
any more meetings, so we can cancel that meeting
We'll call them when we need one.
Cool.
Yeah,
What meeting specifically?
next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
Wednesday, the 26th, I had it under notices and announcements that we were going to cancel the 26th budget meeting, because I really don't know of any reason for us to come here next Wednesday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yep, okay?
all right.
Okay. The other thing is you've been given a poll for Breakfast with Commissioners. And so the question is the 9th, the 11th, the 16th, or 17th? What works best? Seems you all didn't do the poll.
Now, the 17th of what?
These are all April. The 9th is a Wednesday, the 11th is a Friday, the 16th is a Wednesday, the 17th is a Thursday.
What happened to the 3rd and the 4th that Chris gave me?
Apparently it didn't work. Nobody wanted to do it at that time, so.
All right.
Whatever.
Whatever.
You want to do it?
Pick something.
Do you want to do it on a
7th or the 9th is fine.
9th? Or do you want to do it on a Wednesday morning or a Friday
I
morning?
prefer Wednesdays because Fridays is, I'm usually free and I'd like to,
Okay, so we're going to
Stay that way?
schedule Breakfast of the Commissioners on the 9th.
At what time?
Probably 8 o'clock, I think, isn't that what it is? Yep, 8 a.m. here.
Terrible time for old people.
So hopefully the commissioners can show up, be able to welcome all the new employees. This is a great way to be able to introduce yourself and for them to see and talk to you.
All right.
Also, the other thing is Friday is the meeting with Wayne Schmidt and
Howard Walker.
So I will not be able to be there. I hope that you all can be there. So I will
10
be
a.m.
at the Department of Human Services.
May not be.
That is
10 a.m. here,
10 a.m. here.
the training room.
Right, in the training room on the second floor. All employees are invited also, if they want to ask anything. I think the general public, I think, is also invited to that, so if they have any questions.
open meeting.
Also, that Friday on the
George
28th is George Chapin's retirement party.
Yep.
You
Champlin.
should have all
Champlin.
got a...
1 o'clock.
Champlin, excuse me. Is at 1 o'clock out to the Department of Public Works building on Lafreniere.
That's a decent time.
Okay? And then, the other thing is each of you on your desk has the Conservation District's program, outdoor guide for 2014. So I would hope that you would share that with your other elected opportunities to let the other people know. If you need more of these, we can get more. So just to let you know what's happening there.
I have a question.
So much for a short meeting.
Is next Wednesday's meeting at 6 or at 7?
Right now,
And-
it's scheduled at 6.
Scheduled at 6.
It's scheduled at 6 right now.
Yep.
Well, I guess my point was they were moved to 6 o'clock in conjunction with the budget hearings. At least from my perspective, I'd like to move the meeting back to 7 o'clock.
You bet.
So it's going to be on the agenda for next week's meeting
What is?
as to where, if you want to leave it at 6 or if you want to move it to 7.
Why don't we can't do it now?
Other meetings on for...
Well, we got
for
to
the rest.
post it, need time for posting. Why don't we just?
This Wednesday's meeting, we'll leave at 6.
Okay.
We'll have on the agenda the discussion
Excellent.
as to whether or not we leave it at 6 for future meetings or change it to 7.
Let's make it to 7 right now for next week.
Here's your question, is that if any of the commissioners want to go to the Lincoln Day dinner, they can go at 5:30 to 6:30 and get over here by 7. If you keep it at 6, then we just miss the whole thing.
No?
Can we change it now?
Sure, you can make a motion to change the board meeting to 7 PM.
As far as I'm concerned, the board meetings were all posted at the beginning of the year to start at 7 o'clock.
But we made a separate motion.
We made a separate motion to amend those meetings to 6 o'clock in conjunction with the budget hearings that will be held on every Wednesday. If we're not holding a budget meeting next week at 3 o'clock, then I believe that it's appropriate, if we choose to move the Board of Commissioners meeting back to 7 o'clock.
Mr. Chairman, if it's appropriate, I would make a motion that the Board of Commissioners meeting...
You have to amend the board rules because it wasn't part of your agenda.
That's true. Motion to amend the agenda regarding the board meeting on the March 26th.
That's why I was putting it on next week, so, anyway.
Support.
All right, I have a motion and support to amend tonight's agenda to allow for discussion about the time for the Board of Commissioners meeting on March 28th. 26th, I'm sorry. Further discussion? We'll do a roll call vote because it takes 2/3 of a vote.
Okay, so you're trying to get this to 7?
Well, we need to get it on the floor.
This is just to discuss
In
it.
order to discuss it, we have to.
We have to amend,
What time are we meeting next week?
We can't
can't
have that
discuss it yet.
discussion until we pass this motion.
You gotta move to put it on the agenda first.
Let's get on the agenda.
Okay.
Lathrop?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
no.
Lemkool?
No.
Thomas?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes?
Rennie?
Yeah.
Wheelock?
Yes.
Just barely
Okay.
2/3.
How many,
So we have enough votes to have the
Is
discussion.
that 2/3?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. Two noes out of 7 is 2/3, right?
5-7. It was a lot easier for me to keep track of
No, wait.
2/3 when there were 9 of us.
Yeah,
Chairman,
so true.
71%. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to move the Board of Commissioners meeting on March 26th from 6 PM to 7 PM in the commission chambers.
All meetings.
Well, just all meetings are scheduled at 7 right now. We just did it through March on the original
All right.
resolution.
Whatever. Support.
I have a motion by Inman, supported by Thomas, to have next week, March 26th, Board of Commissioners meeting to be held at 7 PM. Further discussion. Chris?
It's already posted at 6 o'clock, and I think it needs to stay at 6 o'clock, rather than move the time. So I'll be voting no.
Good point.
Probably in the minority, but oh well.
Further
there before.
discussion? Roll call, please.
Max Bauer?
No.
Lemkool?
No.
Thomas?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes?
Rennie?
Yes.
Lathrop?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next week's Board of Commissioners meeting will be held at 7 PM.
Goody.
Are there any further announcements or notices?
I notice it's 8:30.
No opportunity for,
It's 8:30.
we do not have a closed session. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to
Go
adjourn.
home.